น้ำล้นน้ำล้นน้ำล้น Friday, a major 7.7 earthquake that originated near Mandalay, Myanmar, shook the earth as far as Bangkok. And I will show you a lot of new pictures of Bangkok, what happened there. It's just incredible. There's new pictures that are surfacing. So that was about 800 miles, 1,300 kilometers away from the epicenter. So two hard-hit cities, Myanmar, Burma, suffered extensive damage, with images from the capital of Myanmar showing like rescue teams running around, and you see a lot of rubble from collapsed building. And unfortunately, authorities in Bangkok said that on 3 construction sites, and I've shown you in my last video already, that new tower that collapsed really like 9/11 style. You can see it. I have a new video here where you see it. It's starting to collapse from the top, and that brings the whole tower down. Does that look familiar? I think it does, guys. So interesting for me is because there's a lot of theories going around that 9/11 was like an artificial explosion or controlled. But you see this tower coming down in a similar way. So it is possible that these towers come down like this without a detailed, like usually when they want to tear down towers, like they come down like this with planned explosions. So that high rise that collapsed, that was shocking to see to me, especially since it's a new building that should have special codes. And I get it, it's not finished yet, but still, how that facade, what that was, came down, scary, especially since I'm in a high rise right now in an area that is prone to produce, has 2 big ones that are overdue in this area, worse than this one. We're talking about magnitude 9. So experts say that this earthquake, this massive earthquake, occurred along the Sagaing fault. And it's close to the Earth's surface, and that's why it has generated these intense seismic forces. If it's shallow, you feel the shaking way more strongly. And the USGS, the US Geological Survey, thinks that nearly 800,000 people in Myanmar have been within that zone that has the most violent shaking. And unfortunately, it looks like more than 1,000 people, maybe more, are lost right now, but they don't have any details so far. They need to do some counting. And why do earthquakes like this happen? And why do they happen in certain parts of the world? That is also an interesting topic that we want to look into in this video. We know that the Earth's crust is broken up in several pieces that we call the tectonic plates, and they kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And mostly we can say that that formation is somewhat stable, but along the edges of these plates, they are moving. And then the pressure builds up if sliding plates get stuck. And that is increasing the pressure very slowly for decades or hundreds of years. And then all over a sudden, these rock plates will jump if the pressure is released. They're stuck, and then they get suddenly loose. And that triggers these massive earthquakes. And everything's shaking. We know the Cascadia Fault on the west coast of the US and Canada is overdue. The plates are stuck. There's a subduction zone. They're sliding underneath each other. They're stuck But when this releases, the plate will jump up and that will trigger this massive magnitude 9+ earthquake with a devastating tsunami only within 8 to 15 minutes. So usually these monster earthquakes occur along the edges of these tectonic plates, but the impacts of these earthquakes are felt in a much wider region usually. And we also, of course, have earthquakes like this that occur in the ocean, but they don't draw that much attention. But the ones that are occurring like right now, close to where people live, causing losses and injuries, most often from collapsed buildings, those are the earthquakes that we're all afraid of in Japan, in this area, but also in North America, South America. So what do scientists know about these earthquakes in advance? Do they know something? The scientists have a good idea where are the most likely spots that earthquakes like this will occur, but they can't predict when they will occur. We only know, well, they're overdue, they're 50 here, it's like 50 years overdue, or there's a chance of like 50% that it happens in the next X number of years, but that doesn't help you if it's happening tomorrow, right? You don't know. But of course, once the big one happens, the scientists are able to predict that there will be aftershocks. And also with this 7.7, there was an immediate aftershock of 6.4. That we know. We can have foreshocks, we can have aftershocks. If you follow my channel in Santorini, we were wondering with this massive earthquake swarm that lasted for weeks, we're like, within the magnitude 5 range is very shallow. So they were wondering, are these aftershocks for a bigger one? Will they have a 7.7 again? Or are these foreshocks, was one of the 5s the big one, then some of them would be aftershocks? Or is the main shock yet to come? But neither happened. It was volcanic origin. Magma was breaking out, most likely of the magma chamber underneath Santorini, and then traveling. But here, this is tectonic. And you know, when you see these towers shake, what would you do if you're in a tower like this, where I am right now? You're in a building and it suddenly begins to shake. I showed you in my last video, the people in the restaurant in Bangkok, they started filming. They didn't even go underneath the table. I think that was a bad decision. Of course, in regions of the world with known fault lines, for example, Japan and California, building codes are often designed to withstand earthquakes, but that is not true everywhere in the world. So that's the problem. So if you're in a building and the shaking begins, the guidance on what to do depends on where in the world you are. What is the probability of your building that it would collapse? Should you stay in the building? Should you try to get out? I mean, in a high rise, if you're up on the 50th floor, running out, you definitely will not get out during the time of shaking. And that tower, how quickly that collapsed, that new construction, no way, right? So in many countries, including the United States, if you're inside a building when the earthquake occurs, it's advisable to drop to the ground and cover your head for protection. Crawling under a desk or sturdy structure next to a sofa or a chair, hold on to that structure. But you also should avoid areas near glass and definitely do not use building elevators. And if you're outside, well, try to remain in an area away from buildings or trees that could fall on you, power lines, stuff like this. Now something fell on me. That's my Swiffer. Yeah. I'm using that to separate Eddie and Rudy, so this is definitely an outtake. When they're at each other and growling at each other, I hit the ground with it and I say, shh. And this really helps. So without the Swiffer, they can start their beef again. So the powerful 7.7 that struck Myanmar, called Burma in previous times, and that has done so much destruction in Bangkok, was generated by a transient system of faults that are stretching over 1,200 kilometers in the central part of the country. And as I said, this system is known as the Sagaing fault. It's one of the most active and also the most dangerous system that has at least produced the last 7 violent earthquakes in Myanmar in the last century alone. So 2 in 1930, in 1931, 2 in 1946, in 1956, and in 1991. And this system is divided into many, many segments, and each of these segments has been broken with one of the violent earthquakes of the 20th century. And also there was a study about this, because it's as massive as this is. Of course there's a study. It has already been done back in 2011, where some researchers have found a possible gap, a seismic gap between the 1930 earthquake that had a magnitude of 7.5 and the 1946 earthquake that was also close. It was a 7.6, even larger. So they were estimating that it would extend over like 260 kilometers in length. And they were also referring to the segment that is a portion of the Sagaing fault that hasn't produced a violent earthquake since 1839. But at that time, at 1839, it did generate a violent earthquake of a magnitude between 7.9 and 8.3. So what they found is they revealed 2 seismic gaps, and the most relevant is located in central Myanmar. And it's roughly 260 kilometers long, and they expect, and that's what they said back in 2011, we expect a future earthquake of up to magnitude 7.9. And they said further in 2011, because this region has not experienced any large earthquake in the last 113 years, the next large earthquake is expected to hit the area in the near future. They said that back in 2011. And they further said the population of 2 neighboring cities, Mandalay and Nai Pyi, they are in severe seismic risk. So how does that relate to Friday's 7.7 magnitude area? And it looks like that this earthquake was generated by this usually very silent for over 100 years segment of the Sagaing fault, because the epicenter is right there in this segment that they were talking about in 2011. And also the USGS has done a preliminary modeling, and that also matches, because they say that that fracture that's happening there that was produced by that earthquake stretches for at least 250 kilometers. So that's almost exactly the estimated length of that gap that the researchers found in 2011. We don't know if it's exactly the same yet, but in 2011 they were warning about this area. Of course you can say, well, that's over a decade later, but it's pretty close in terms of predicting a big one. Imagine the west coast of the US and Canada, cities like Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, if they could say, guys, within the next 15 years, you will see the big one, the magnitude 9. Oh my God, I would move away from here as quickly as I can, because within the next 15 years means this is really close, can happen at any time. It can still happen at any time, don't get me wrong, when they say in the next 200 years, right? But if they can narrow it down like this, scary stuff. And we know many cities are not up to codes with their buildings, and buildings will collapse in the US as well, in Canada. I've made videos about it. Check out what's going to happen to British Columbia. Made a video about especially the capital, Victoria. But if you look at the pictures here, you see these buildings tilt and fall over and the bridges collapse. This is massive what's going on there, guys. I'm so sorry. You see a picture of the airport and you see the roads are cracking, cracks are opening. That's what I'm always worried. And I say, if you follow my channel at the Campi Flegrei super volcano in Italy, they have these evacuation routes getting away from the volcano, but there will be big earthquakes before the volcano breaks. And then the roads could look exactly like they're looking here in Bangkok, Myanmar. And how do you want to evacuate? Because they're based on like bus drivers, 500 buses that are waiting in an area with over 6 million people. And if the roads look like this, game over in my opinion. And homes that collapse, if they fall on the roads, I mean, you see these are so many. And what is absolutely stunning is these high rises that have the outdoor pools on top, how that water is coming down there. I imagine, and I've heard that there were people in the pools. This is scary stuff, guys, absolutely scary. And also I want to talk about, especially in this area, we see a lot of like twin tower styles that have connections in between so that you can get, even if you're higher up, from one tower to the other tower. And the videos that I've seen, you see it here, it's really scary stuff how these bridges are separating because each tower is shaking, right? So they should have these bridges on a shaking so that they can expand and shake so that they don't break. Of course, right? If the towers are made to sway, and you see this in the videos that I have put in the background here, each tower is swaying. If they don't sway simultaneously, of course this breaks, right? I think they understand that now. So absolutely mind-breaking what has happened there, guys. And again, this shallow depth that has created maximum intensity. They say the intensity was maximum. It was 9. That's not the magnitude, but the intensity of the shaking, the acceleration basically, because it was so shallow. Absolutely crazy. A lot of heritage sites, palaces, temples were completely destroyed. You see some of the pictures here. So yeah, guys, that was an update. It can happen in many parts of the world. So if you live in one of these parts, be prepared so that you know what to do. And be also prepared, it could trigger a tsunami that might come at your place right away, like the west coast of the US and Canada. 8 to 15 minutes, you will have to seek higher ground. Experts are saying the shaking can last several minutes. If that ends, run. They tell you, and this sounds cruel, do not turn around, do not help anybody, you do not have time, run. And the thing is, be always prepared of your surroundings. Where are the evacuation routes? US in the West Coast is very, very good. You know if you're in a designated tsunami hazard area or not, or if you're leaving it, and there's maps where the evacuation routes are if you're walking on the beach, and there's signs. Here in Canada, maybe in Tofino on Vancouver Island, Vancouver, nothing. Vancouver doesn't expect a violent tsunami because there's so many islands. But I just saw this today. Oregon, the city department of one city in Oregon has released that. Even if it's just 2 meter high, which can happen here in Vancouver, it can drag you out. It brings cars to swim. People can drown. It's still dangerous. So you need to know where is your higher ground, where to go. So guys, if you liked what you saw, please leave this video a like, share it with your friends, create awareness. And if you want to support the channel, you can buy me a super here on YouTube or go to the links in the descriptions. I'm supporting my sick dog Apollo right now with my buymeacoffee.com/silky site. So if you want to do that, buy us a coffee or two. Link is in the description. And thank you so much for your heartfelt messages. And that's the Swiffer again. If you want to become a member of the channel that supports the channel as well, also click the link in the description. I'll release some behind the scenes videos. And if you wonder why I said that's the Swiffer again, this is an outtake. It's going to be available in the membership level very, very soon after this video is released. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Bye.